Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining my California Brief new podcast on X. We start at 3 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I am here to talk about all things politics, what's going on in California, and what's going on across the nation. My name is Denise. I have been an advocate here in California. I'm also a co-founder of Freedom Angels. We're a human and civil rights organization and founder of Mom Militia. We're a national networking, or a national network of women who are all aligned, trying to take back control of our kids' education, our food, and our healthcare. Thank you so much for tuning in to the second episode of the California Brief. You can find me on X under Informed Mama 209. I am also on YouTube, California Brief. This is a brand new podcast, so I'm going to go ahead and upload everything at the end of the day. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your support and all the things that I've been doing for the last 10 years. I can't believe how long it's been. I have immersed myself into California politics, so I know exactly where the bones are buried here. Speaking of California, we saw Gavin Newsom is off in Switzerland talking about how awful Donald Trump has tanked this economy when really, Gavin Newsom has destroyed the economy of California. Now, if you're watching this later, I'll be over on Instagram under Denise.theinformedmama. I'm also on Facebook. So let's talk about what Gavin has done to our beautiful state. It is so upsetting to be here, to have such a beautiful state where we can go, to the ocean, we can go to the mountains, yet the majority of working class families are suffering while millionaires continue to benefit from Gavin Newsom's policies and special interest groups. And it's just crazy. Like yesterday, I talked about, the possibility of a $76 billion budget deficit while Gavin has increased our budget to $349 billion is incredibly asinine, honestly. I mean, especially, I don't know if you guys have seen, but federal government is talking about, you are in violation of so many things. Not too long ago, it was all in on X and on different social media platforms, how Title IX is like a huge issue, especially in California, as schools and doctors and California politicians try to push families out of children's, medical care, mental health care, education. So in this episode, we are going to talk about some of those policies that I'm talking about. Earlier, somebody kind of commented on there and said, I love this state. It's beautiful. It's so nice to be able to go to the snow, go to the beach, like I was saying. But she's terrified of California schools and what's going to happen with her kids, as she should be. I really built my platform on trying to show you what kind of policies have come out, because as a former Democrat, I am just appalled at what kind of policies are being pushed, especially in schools. Like, we all know all the things, right? The economy shit here in California, the gas is expensive, electricity, we all know those things. And because mainstream media likes to talk about that stuff, right? But what they fail to talk to us about is what's happening in the public school system. Now, as I was saying, the federal government wants to withhold funding from the state of California for violating Title IX. This is allowing boys in girls sports. Now, it kind of comes full circle with what's happening in the public school system. Not too long ago, I forgot the bill number. Oh my gosh, I hope I can find it. But not too long ago, there was a bill that would have, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot it. I will update you guys with what that bill is once I post this. But and this is something that happened at Chino School District in Southern California. They're fighting our attorney general. Okay, our California attorney general is fighting tooth and nail to try to allow schools to hide the social transitioning of children. Now, this is why the person who made this comment to me, why they're so concerned. Any parent who has a kid in public school and who is aware of the things that are going on with the curriculum and the policies should be terrifying. Okay. Why is our Attorney General, Rob Bonta, and our Governor, Gavin Newsom, fighting so hard to remove parents from this conversation? It's insane to me. We have the California Teachers Union that donates heavily, heavily to the Democrats here, to Gavin Newsom. And they also heavily support the policies of like hiding if your child wants to be called by a different pronoun. So if the boy goes to school, says, "Oh, I'm a girl now, I want to use the girls' restroom." These schools have these private files. And I've seen it because unfortunately, I have a kid who goes to public school, and these forms are like almost intake forms. When school first starts, or if there's a new teacher, they send over these forms, and they don't go onto the student's actual file because this would violate FERPA. This just goes into the teacher's file, so she knows or he knows how to address that kid. And so, as Gavin is going and saying all these things about the federal government, just remember, like, these policies allow for schools to hide the social transition of children. They do not want to talk to parents about this, which I am so like flabbergasted. My flabber is gasted. I do not understand why this is such a controversial thing. We were, kind of opposing this bill. We were going to the Capitol, talking to legislators, and it was just so crazy that people would correlate this, like allowing parents, not even allowing, but not impeding on the parents' rights of their children. Like, this is a forced outing. Oh my God, these teachers get forced. That is not happening here. Okay. I, as a parent, fully believe that we need to know what's going on with our kids, right? Like, this is like a mental health thing. Like, we want to make sure they're being supported. We want to make sure that these kids get everything that they need. Instead, the public school system not only has created these policies to say, okay, no parents, no, you're not going to be able to have a say so in how your children are being educated, because they are graduating illiterate. I think in Richmond it was like a single digits of the kids who were at reading comprehension. How is this a thing when we send our kids to school for 8 hours? And so I 100% align with that comment of, I'm scared for what the Democrats are doing to these schools, to these kids. I don't know if anybody knew about this, but a few years ago there was a bill. I think it was like 2 years ago. There was a bill. Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you, Mike, for reposting this. There was a bill, AB 665, and this was like a two-part bill, and nobody talked about the second part, right? They talked about the first part because there's two pieces to this. But I'm going to tell you what it is, because this is how these legislators sneak in policies that may not people don't really agree with. So AB 665 did two things. The first thing it did was it brought insurance equity to kids. So kids who were on Medi-Cal or private pay insurance, they got the same services when it comes to mental health care. That's okay, right? We want these kids to have mental health support. And I'm going to talk about that lame system that we have now, because we don't have a mental health support system here in California. But it also it basically emancipated 12-year-olds. It allows for 12 years old and up to decide if they want to leave their home and check into a residential shelter under the care of the state, right? They were like, oh, this isn't happening. The supporters of this thing, this isn't happening. This isn't what the bill actually does. But I've read the bill. We worked with attorneys on the bill. We were talking to legislators about the bill. I mean, what I'm going to tell you is exactly the way that this was created, because once you start connecting the dots to the other bills, it's kind of like, how is this even happening in California? Well, it happens, let me tell you, because people don't know about it, right? Not everybody knows about these kinds of bills, and our legislators surely are not talking to us in the community about them. But when you have a school, and when I talk about this, a lot of people always say, Well, if you were a good parent, you would know if your kid is socially transitioning or medically transitioning. And that is straight up from someone who I'm very familiar with this system. No. When we have our children in a public school system that's 8 hours a day, most parents work all day long. You're getting just a couple hours if you're lucky with your kids. It is really hard to keep up with not just the public school system, but also what they're experiencing on social media, what the teachers are telling them, what mainstream media is telling them. It has completely captured these kids to where parents are now considered dangerous or they're considered the enemy and we don't know. So it's really, parents would love to know about this stuff. However, the state of California has made it incredibly difficult to do this. So, as schools, hide this information and allow children to basically run this, asylum. Uh, we have a really messed up situation because not just the schools are doing this, but like our California legislature has created these types of policies. All right, AB 665 in the bill, you can pull it up. You can look on Legiscan. This is like where a lot of people use website that people use to keep up with the bills. They took out one word out of there, and it was so right now, if a child goes to school and says, I'm getting abused, I need to find another place to go, the school would be able to facilitate that move after they contact police, after they go through court, because due process, everyone is talking about due process is necessary when you are tearing apart the family unit, right? Parents should have the ability to go and defend what these kids, what the kids are saying. And if there is abuse, absolutely take care of that. The system of DCSF, CPS needs to be completely overhauled, but that's another TED talk. However, there was due process for this, right? So in AB 665, if you read it, it actually took the word out that kids needed, or that there needed to be proof of abuse before children were removed from the home. Now that proof of abuse is no longer required. They took that out of the language and it changed the whole family code. This was like part of our opposition. We're screaming and holding up our hands saying, hey, we understand that this is a problem, or we need to maybe address this problem better than what we're doing, but this isn't how we do it. So now picture this, okay? These kids are dealing with all the things on social media, right? All that stuff. It's very complex growing up. We've all dealt with it. But what we didn't deal with is the other attacks coming out from different ways. So now we have AB 665 that tells children, these teachers, these counselors are able to say, okay, well, if you don't feel safe at home, if you don't feel supported and safe, we're going to go ahead and facilitate your move to a residential shelter. We don't have to tell your parents yet, not until you tell us that it's okay. That's what California has done. So if you're not familiar here, especially when it comes to kids and medical privacy, 12 years and up have medical privacy here. All right. They can decide what kind of medical procedures, mental health procedures, reproductive health decisions they can make on their own without parental consent, knowledge, or notification. And so as you have AB 665, which targets LGBT kids, we heard that during the testimony, you're targeting a demographic of kids that are already having a very difficult time navigating life. Now you have this other piece where teachers, counselors, students are saying, hey, if you don't want to live there, go to this shelter. I'm over here. These are my friends. It's really cool. And then you have these adult males who are inside the facility and they're around these kids. It is a never ending loop of putting children into these policies of where predators have access to them, right? So I'm fully aware of having children in public school is a very dangerous thing right now. So you have AB 665 tells them you can run away, right? You don't need to be with your parents. You can do this, you can do that, you can have a great time at this shelter. But what we also have that just recently passed was AB 727. Now, this was built, of course, on the backs of LGBT umbrella. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with this. However, if you're not, I encourage you to go to this website. Now, the Trevor Project. Okay, that is very important that you know. If you have a kid in public school, very important that you know what this is. So, the Trevor Project was built on the platform of helping guide children and adults who are feeling like self-harm. It's supposed to be like another form of the suicide prevention line that we already have here in California. So the way it works, California has a suicide prevention line. If a child or anybody, 13 to anywhere, right? The cutoff is 13, or the beginning point is 13. If a 13-year-old calls into the Trevor Project and says, "Hey, I don't know how I feel about me, or my family doesn't understand me. I don't, they don't want this or that," whatever the issue is that they're feeling this way and they're under the LGBT umbrella, those calls, instead of those children being taken care of like every other person, those calls are then funneled over to the Trevor Project. Now, the federal government has defunded this project, and we saw, who was it? Wife of Amazon guy. I don't know. I should have this on my notes. I'm sorry I don't. But you know what I'm talking about. She donated like millions to the Trevor Project. Now, what this does, it forces schools to have on the back of the ID cards, the lanyards that hold the Trevor Project information. So if a kid calls the suicide prevention line, they get funneled over to the Trevor Project. Or if they contact the Trevor Project directly, then those kids will get the information of being a member on the website, the Trevor Project. You should go on there. If you are a parent and you are not fully aware of this, you should go on there and create an account. Now, this website is targeted for 13-year-olds. Okay, so high school kids are going to have this badge. They're going to say, "Okay, I'm going to go onto this website, right? I'm going to create a members account." So you go on there. It asks you what your age is, gender, orientation, all those things. Now, there is no age verification. This is also important because it asks you, like, are you 13 and up? And if you're not, it's okay. You can just make up the lie. Once you have that account ready to rock and roll, you then get funneled over to all the chat rooms. This is an atrocity that California legislators have forced schools to do this. They actually tried to make private schools do this, but the private schools fought back and won. But you then have this account and you're able to look into these chat rooms, and there's things like gay men, witchcraft, I'm your daddy now, moms are overrated, lesbian love. I mean, and these are adults. Adults have access to this. Okay. So once this kid is in these websites, anybody from those chat rooms can then privately message that child and redirect them over to other accounts like Snapchat, where conversations disappear. Now, it's very interesting that the Trevor Project, when you go on there and it's telling you like all the ins and outs of the website, a little pop-up comes up and it tells these kids, if your parents see this and you want to hide it, press escape 3 times. It's going to get you out of the website. If it was a website that did not do harm, why do you have to tell people how to escape out of it and to hide your tracks? That is what California is doing to these kids. And, I know a lot of people are very just more concerned about, economy, which you should be, right? You should be concerned about the economy. You should have concerns about why gas is almost $6 in California and why PG&E is able to increase our rate 6 times in 1 year, right? Why food is grown the way it is with all this poison in it. We should all be concerned about that. But my biggest concern is what's happening to kids in California. I am a mom first. And so when I see all of these people supporting the Democrat Party and saying, "Oh, they've done awesome things for us," right? The people who supported Prop 50 are driving me insane. Honestly, like, I was so involved in politics, like 24/7. I was at the Capitol. I basically lived in Sacramento. I did our homeschool at the Capitol. I was in it. And then when Prop 50 passed, with the majority of people who didn't even know about what this prop was, it made me just feel like ick. Like, I don't even want to do this anymore. People are going to people all the time, and voters are low informed, right? Because the way Prop 50 was, we all saw it, the marketing was magnificent. Okay. There was so much money poured into this project, and people voted for this prop when they thought that voting for this prop meant that we were going to have an independent committee that was going to decide what the lines were, and that's just not the case. And then we hear, well, Texas did it. Well, California was against California's constitution. California voters did not want that to happen. Now they have opened the door. This is the funniest part. They have opened the door to some of the most extreme legislators that we have ever had in California are now running for those Democrat seats. Let's talk about Senator Richard Pan, a true believer in the vaccine mandate. Okay, this is the guy who is responsible for SB 277, the removal of vaccine exemptions, religious exemptions. He's also very, very pro mandate the COVID shot for children 6 months and up. This guy, we always talk about he received like hundreds of thousands of dollars from the pharmaceutical companies to do this. Yet he doesn't even need that. He would do that shit for free because he is a true believer. So now we have this person is going to go to Congress. Okay. He will win on the seats that he runs because they will make sure that he wins. Now these people, including Scott Wiener, who's going to win his congressional seat, they're going to be at the highest level with no term limits, putting forward some of the most extreme policies. Now, as we're talking about this issue in the school system and, the transition subject of, kids chopping off healthy body parts and sterilizing themselves and mutilating themselves. This is all like a heavy subject that a lot of people don't want to think it's actually happening. It is happening. We saw hospitals are canceling surgeries for minors trying to cut off healthy body parts. Now, the whole country sometimes when they think about it, they're like, this isn't really happening. This isn't really happening. People aren't really doing that to their kids. Unfortunately, we're going to stick to the subject of the kind of crazy, demonic Democrat policies that have hit. SB 107. This actually impacts the whole nation. Before Scott Wiener even gets to Congress, he's already created policies that impact children all across the United States. Leave it to Scott to touch something and it turns to caca, right? So in the state of California, SB 107 has created our state as a sanctuary state to sterilize and mutilate children. Children from anywhere in the world can come to California and get what they're calling gender affirming care. All right, this falls under either social transition or medicalizing, and medicalizing is really what the agenda is, right? You see all these doctors doing it, all these TikToks saying, "Hey, tomboy, if you don't like the way you are, you just cut your body parts off and you'll be fine." But kids can come here and get whatever services that the other parent wants them to get. Now, this is really important because this happened in Texas. A family from Texas, the mom wanted to transition the child, which is crazy talk. When did the mothers ever become like this? Honestly, so she wanted to transition the kid. The dad said, absolutely not. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to allow it. Well, then she flees over here to California under SB 107, and she's able to get the care that she wants to give her kid. And it's not even care, honestly. It's a medical experimentation that they want to give to this kid, right? Now, that's not even the end of it. If dad did come. Dad comes to California and says, I don't want this to happen. I am the parent. I have half custody. No, I don't want this. I don't want this for my kid. The state of California can actually take custody from that parent, temporary custody, that's what they call it, and then funnel them through the gender affirming care situation. And the father has no say. So now he's just lost custody. He's just lost medical rights. And the mom is able to transition a minor child. And we've seen it time and time again. Look at this. I thank you for commenting, Rita. I'm a nurse who resigned from my job because I did not want to participate in it. When did our healthcare system get taken over by the pharmaceutical system? What, like 20 years ago? It's insane. It is insane. And yet we're the ones that are called names and all of the things. It's bamboozling to me that anybody would support the Democrat policies at this point. But let's go to a different subject. So, okay, politics, right? This is the issue. We all know the issue. Part of that earlier comment was somebody saying, I am scared, right? I'm scared for my kids. I'm scared to have my kids here. I'm scared for my family. I can't move. First of all, we shouldn't have to move. Some people can't afford to move. We shouldn't have to. We should not have to uproot our whole family, right? But there's only so much we can do in politics until we have something like voter ID, until we have something like, some kind of election integrity. There's always going to be something within the political system that, what's that's not everybody wants to rule the world. That's just the way it's always been. And so as I've worked in politics and advocacy and built out different models for the things that um, I that are true to me, that really concern me. I think I've built out one of the most important models for myself and for just women in general, and that is building out mom militia. And I laugh because when I first founded Mom Militia, it was in 2019. All right. And I knew the writing on the wall. California just passed a bill, AB 626, and it would have allowed the public health officer to deal with outbreaks however they wanted to. There was no checks and balances. This was right before COVID hit. AB 626 passes. Tara and I are looking at each other. We're like, something's up, right? They're planning something. Something's going to happen, because why are we having this kind of bill? Like, why does a local public health officer have to be involved like this? Like, strange. So there was writing on the wall, right? We were like, okay, we kind of know something's coming up. And so I called 12 of my friends and I was like, hey, I just feel like we need to build a support system, like something. And I couldn't quite figure it out, like what it was, right? It was something I knew I needed. It's something I knew my friends needed, but I just needed help building this out. And so I called my friends. I called Gabby, Erin, and Tara. And I was like, we need to build this. So we did this picture, and it was all of us. It was 12 of us holding up our firearms, right? It was such a hot picture, honestly. It was like chef's kiss. And we posed for it, and we were just like, Mom Militia, right? New. And at the time that we were building it, we were like, didn't really know where this was going to go. We just knew something was going to happen, right? And so as we're playing on the names, someone, from the media said, oh, they're a militia. And we kind of sat there and we're like, well, no, because in militias in California, our constitution says, like, if you're a militia, the governor can call you to help him defend the state. And we're like, we are not defending California. This is not what this is. Mom Militia, the foundation of it and the thought of it was the sisterhood. It was, creating a network, a safe network of women who maybe are aligned with me, who want to learn how to grow food, who want to learn how to can and preserve food. Maybe we can barter together and homeschool together. Like, that was the building blocks around this organization. And so now, like, since 2019, was 5 years, oh my gosh, we have built out this infrastructure of women from all across the United States. We're everywhere. We're hundreds of women. And we have this private, secure network. We don't take applications throughout the year. We open up once a year in February. We have an application process. You meet the women in the group, and we meet once a month. That once a month meeting can go anywhere between, just like having a sit down and conversation about, like, pathways, what we think we need to fix in our own community. Also, like, trainings, and we do medic care, or we'll do, canning meat, whatever it is. But this is what I found, that how my plan B is going to be, right? Because we can get involved in politics, and we should. It is our fault that we are the way we are. But we can put a speed bump in things. I mean, we've killed bills. We've done amazing work here in California. But what the most important thing for me is, and what I would like to relay to people is, we have to build the world that we want for our families. And that means that we surround ourselves with people who we want our kids to be around, with people who align with us. Because I know for myself, I can no longer hold relationships with people who have like lunatic thinking. What I think is lunatic thinking, right? Like if you think that it's okay to do this stuff to kids, right? Like you and I, we're not gonna rock and roll. I have a great group of friends who are either not activated in politics or maybe think differently and lean more liberal. That's great. But my tight community, the people that I'm like, building with and creating food with and bartering with, those are the people I want to align with, because when shit hits the fan, I want to know that my family's safe, right? Like during COVID, we our lives didn't change because I had this group of women who were like, hey, let's go to the park. Let's, go do a field trip, whatever we decided to do, because that's how we're going to change our immediate household, right? Because during, what was it? I think 2021, let's start 2020, during the peak of COVID, Ventura local public health department, there's that AB 626. That's why it's important to know these laws. They went on to a presser and said, if you are sick, if you have anybody in your house that is sick and you only have one bathroom, we are going to remove that person and put them into alternative housing. This was peak COVID. Then in 2021, the California legislature really tried to sneak something by, and that was the mandate for all employees to get the COVID shot. Along with that, there was also Gavin Newsom going onto his presser to say children 6 months and up need to be vaccinated with the COVID shot. No exemptions. All right. In California, we have no exemptions. Once the media got a hold of that from, what is it? It's Stand Up San Diego, or San Diego Rise Up. San Diego Rise Up. My friend Melissa runs it. She alerted the media of this bill, and very quickly the media was like, hey, this is way too extreme. There are people who work here who are not going to get this. Like, there is going to be no exemptions for it. The legislature quietly walked it back, and the co-authors took their name off the bill. But this is how it's done. Like, unless there's like a red flag, like, hey, out of these 2,000 bills, this is like a crazy one, nobody's going to know, because no, I don't know any legislators that come out to the community and talk about the controversial bills. These elected representatives come out and talk about all the great things that they're doing, right? But there's never a town hall to talk about, like, hey, this is happening. This is this is what you can do to stop it. Now, one of the things I always talk about is like, California's a super majority of Democrats, right? And all these things. However, there was a bill, and I'm going to get that for you tomorrow. I'm sorry, I'm so unprepared today. There was a bill written by a Republican, co-authored by a Republican, that said we needed to provide a QR code in order to get into stores. Now, when we addressed the Republicans who created these bills, they said, well, we just don't want your card to get messed up. We want you to just have it easy, check in. Excuse me? What are you talking about? Why is the Democrat Party so hell-bent on mask mandates, vaccine mandates in order to move around freely in society, to go to work, to go to school? It's a little hypocritical of what we're seeing right now. The my body, my choice, the mask things, all of this stuff. Like, where have you been the last 6 years, 5 years, where people were literally having to make a really hard decision? Am I going to allow my employer to push me into being vaccinated and being tested, or what are my options? My husband and I had to sit down together, and we had to have a serious conversation of, if this happens, if my husband's job were to have mandated that he get vaccinated with the COVID shot, what are we going to do? Are you going to comply? Are we going to just give everything up and go live in the woods? What are we going to do? We came to the conclusion of, we're getting a camper. If we have to be homeless and live in the woods, then that's just the direction that we're going to have to go in. But why are we even put in those positions? And now we're seeing the people who lied about the whole thing to Congress, to us, they're not being hired by California, by Gavin Newsom, hiring the former CDC official who is responsible for all this to come to California and get on the vaccine advisory board that he has created for us. Nobody asked him for it, yet here we are, having to deal with all the things that he's done. And, for families, I really hope that what I can provide to you in these TED Talks is that homeschooling really is the best option. And I know a lot of families feel like they can't. There's some, working families, but it's more of like, you don't have daycare versus homeschool. We've been homeschooling since the very beginning, and it was the best decision that we ever made. I know that my kid is advanced in all the things that he needs to be advanced in. And when people think of homeschooling, it's really like, it shows the amount of like delusion that children are socialized, or that parents are not really involved and we're not able to teach our kids. My son is 11 years old. Okay. He has all A's. We are on this website that tracks his grades and things like that. Great student. He is an amateur boxer. He is learning how to fly under Young Eagles. He's learning how to sail ships under the Sea Scouts. And he's an all-around, well-rounded kid with common sense. And I have, like I said, a public school kid. I'm so sad I can't homeschool him. But there's such a big difference in the behaviors of these kids. It's unfortunate that we pay so much money within the school for taxes within the school system, and the standards have lowered so much that the teachers union, I'm familiar, the teachers union wants to protect teachers and give them livable wages and all that stuff, but you're now sacrificing the education of kids for your career. What do we call that? Like, you guys, there's some great teachers out there who need more support, right? But there's also a standard that has been lowered so much in this state, where they just keep passing kids throughout the grades. And even if they don't learn anything, these kids are still being passed. And now Democrats have created policies that there's no consequences to what any of these kids are doing. And it's just kind of left them in a rut. And so as we wrap up here, my hope, my hope in the bottle that I've had is that you look into not just getting involved in politics, but building out the kind of system that you want, the world that you want. My organization, Mom Militia, has worked very hard to build out this structure, and we are very excited and very proud of what we have produced. Women from all over the country will be able to apply with us on February 1st. You can go to mommilitia.org and you can see what we do, who we are, and all of our locations. But also, like I said yesterday, April 7th, we are having an in-person Informed Families Forum here in Stockton, California. And we are going to go over all the things that you need to know. It is also a pick my brain kind of event. Like, you're going to be able to ask me questions. You're going to be able to walk away with tons of information. We're going to talk about the new vaccine schedules. We're going to talk about AB 144. We're going to talk about AB 495. And you're going to walk away with the form from Nicole Pearson of how to opt your children out of AB 495. It's the bill that has updated the who can take guardianship over a minor child, the caregiver's affidavit. It's a hot mess express here. Children are basically, like I said, emancipated at 12, and then, adults 5 times removed from families can come and use a piece of paper to make medical and educational decisions for minor children. It is incredible what California has done. The Democrats continue to ruin this most beautiful state. And so I hope for you that you get involved in politics, you build out the world that you want, and we come together to try to bring some course correction and some balance to the state. So my event is April 7th at 6 o'clock p.m. in Stockton. You can go to my website, theinformedmama.org. You can see all the information. Tickets are not on sale yet, but they will be very, very shortly. Go to that website right there. And I will be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time to talk about the California Brief and all things happening in this nation. You can join us on Thursday. Thursday is going to be a lot of fun. I have Amy Reichart. She has been uncovering the massive, massive fraud happening in California within daycares. So she's going to come on and she's going to talk to us about what she has found. And let's just hope that the federal government starts auditing California and that families start getting engaged. So you can find this replay. I'm going to try to get it out on X. Is the best place that you can find this podcast under Informed Mama 209. I'm going to try to get this replayed onto my Instagram, which is Denise the Informed Mama, and on my Facebook. So I will be back tomorrow. I'm hoping that Primo is going to get on with me. He has a lot of information of what's going on a national level. Primo is my husband, and he is the one who got me involved in politics. So I will see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time right here on X under Informed Mama 209. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow on the California Brief. Bye.